Hey guys, welcome to Telling the Told and Untold. My name is Tshego. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys so much for 5,000 subscribers. It happened really quickly and I'm still in disbelief. And I just hope that as I continue putting content out there, you guys enjoy it. And yeah, I just do well and I have your guys' support. So yeah, with that, let's go straight into today's case. In the early hours of January 20th, 2003, a man stumbled into a petrol station and he was bleeding profusely. He was bleeding from both his head and his neck. And before he collapsed, he was able to tell petrol attendants to call police officers to go to 7 Graham Road. 7 Graham Road was in Sea Point, Cape Town, and it was a house known as Sizzlers Gay Escort Agency. Police officers say that when they walked into Sizzlers, they were just met with a really bloody and gruesome scene. There were bodies on the floor, and some of the men were still crawling around, those that had survived the attack. 6 men were pronounced dead at the scene, and 4 of them were taken to ICU at Grooteskier Hospital and were in critical condition. Amongst those 4 men was the man that had been able to stumble upon the petrol station and get the petrol attendants to call the police officers. Unfortunately, 3 of the 4 men would not survive. Police officers say that the men were face down with their hands tied behind their back with sellotape as well as their feet. They all had their throats slit and had been shot in the back of their heads execution style. Quentin Taylor was the only survivor despite having had a bullet in his head. Some sources say that he had 1 bullet, other sources say that he had 2 bullets, but the fact is that he had been shot in the head and had also had his throat slit. It's really a miracle that he survived this. The victims of this gruesome attack was the owner, Aubrey Otgar, the masseuses that worked there, Sergio De Castro, Morris Meyer, Travis Rieder, Timothy Boyat, Stephanus Faut, Johan Meyer, and Robert Visser, as well as a client, Gregory Bachas. So basically, Sizzlers was known as Sizzlers Gay Escort Agency, but it was more known as a massage parlor for queers, but more so on the gay spectrum. But that doesn't necessarily mean that other men did not come in. Bi-curious men, married men, so it was just basically man-to-man contact, male-to-male contact. The media dubbed this as the Sizzlers Massacre, but if you do go search this case, some of them call this the Gay Massacre, the Gay Masseuse Massacre, just things like that. So I'll just be referring to it as the Sizzlers Massacre just to be more respectful to the men that did work there. So basically, Sizzlers was just a house in Sea Point, and as soon as you walked in on the left, there was a room that had multiple bunk beds because all the men that worked at Sizzlers were meant to live there. Different sources say different things about the men's pay. Some sources say that they really didn't earn that much. Other sources say that they did earn a lot. One of the victim's fathers say that he remembers his son coming in and he had expensive shoes that cost 3,000 rand, and he really didn't understand why he would consider prostituting himself to earn such money. So basically, if you wanted to work at Sizzlers, you had to be over the age of 18 because it did include sexual acts, and you had to be stereotypically a good looking man. So what you would do is that you would strip in front of the owner, you would strip naked, and he would just make sure that you look good for the customers that would come in. So what would happen is a customer would either make an appointment or walk in, and all the men would showcase themselves one by one so that the client would choose which man they wanted, or they could have a preference and say that they want a blonde man, and then only blonde men would come out. They were also referred to as boys and not men, so it would be like the Sizzlers boys, like that. So the first thing police officers did was go out and look for any witnesses, and they found multiple people that said that they saw 4 men getting into a white BMW in the early hours of the 20th of January. The first suspect had a tattoo of a curled up snake on his upper left arm, as well as the words "Fast Gun" on his wrist. Fast Gun was basically just a gang that operated in Johannesburg, and they were associated with gun violence. This man was said to have reddish hair, which was probably bleached, as well as wore a goatish beard. The second suspect was a thin man with a fair complexion and was said to sniff a lot, which is usually just an indication of someone that sniffs cocaine. The third suspect was tall with a shaven head and appeared to be well built, and some said it appeared like he could be a bodybuilder. And the fourth suspect was just described as well built and really didn't have any identifiable features. After a while, police officers arrested two men, Adam Woyest, who was 27 years old at the time, as well as Trevor Theus, who was 48 years old. Adam was a manager at a restaurant and Trevor was a taxi driver, and he would just usually transport prostitutes and escorts to their appointments. So I couldn't find out when police officers discovered that these two were their men and where the other two men kind of just like fell off, because in the beginning of the investigation, they mentioned 4 men that they were looking for and gave descriptions of them. And then all of a sudden, they only arrested 2 men. And those 2 men were the only ones ever convicted. So I really don't understand what happened to the 2 other men, or if like the witnesses just saw something incorrect or they were just never arrested. So in police custody, Adam never spoke a word to the police. He refused to give a confession or just really say anything, whereas Trevor was very quick to tell police officers about what happened that fateful night. So according to Trevor, the year before, in 2002, he would frequent the restaurant that Adam worked at, and he really befriended the staff and everything like that. And then one day Adam approached him, and he was the manager at this restaurant, and Adam approached him and told him that apparently Sizzlers has a lot of money that they keep on the premises. Trevor says after this, Adam said that he wanted to rob them, and Trevor agreed to robbing them, but he really didn't think that he was serious and made a joke that because he's colored and lives in a township, he'll be able to get 2 guns easily. A while later, Adam asked if he had managed to get the guns, and Trevor said that he didn't. Around this time, Trevor had a girlfriend who was 20 years old, and apparently she broke his heart with another woman, and he just really didn't like that and tried getting her back, but she refused. And just after this, he really just didn't see any point to anything, so that's when he decided to steal his brother's gun, and apparently he had his own gun as well. After this, Trevor called Adam and told him that he had the guns, and Adam said that the plan was a go. And after this, he called Sizzlers and made an appointment as a client. Once Adam and Trevor got to the premises, they were let in and told the manager that they prefer blondes. After this, a blonde man came into the room, and this is when Adam took out his gun and told him to take him to the rest of the guys. After this, Adam got to the rest of the boys and asked them where they kept their money, and that's where they found a safe, and it only had 2,000 rand in it, according to Trevor, and they really expected more money. That isn't what they came to Sizzlers for. Adam then took the 2,000 rand and put it in his pocket, and then told all the men to lie down flat with their head facing the floor, and then they then proceeded to tie them with sellotape around their legs as well as their hands. After this, Adam told Trevor that they had to slit their throats, and Trevor says that that's like, he really didn't want to do that, that's not who he was, and he didn't understand why they couldn't just leave then. And after that, they started from each corner, so Adam would be this side and Trevor was on the other side, and they would slit each of the men's throat one by one. Trevor says that as he was slitting their throats, he made sure that the cuts weren't fatal and they were just superficial wounds, whereas Adam was just very gruesome about it and really not remorseful. Trevor says after he slit their throats, he really just couldn't handle it, and he decided to go to the kitchen to just drink some water, and this is where he heard some men screaming because they were having their throats slit. He returned to the room and saw that another door had been opened, and then in this room there were 2 other men. After this, they tied the men like they did the others, and Adam stayed with those men, and Trevor went to be with the other men. He says that they were just having, like, they were chatting and they were laughing, but I really find that hard to believe. Like, you don't slit someone's throat and tie their hands and their feet and then proceed to make jokes with them and laugh with them, because I'm sure they were scared. Like, they were scared for their lives, like 2 men just coming in and slitting their throats, and now you want to make jokes with them. As Trevor was supposedly laughing with the men on the floor, he saw Adam, and Adam was just staring at him, and it appeared as though he was waiting for something. And after that, he kept mentioning the guns, and Trevor just kept like refusing, like, why do you want to bring guns into this? Like, he really didn't understand. And he says that most of the time throughout this whole ordeal, he really wasn't thinking straight. He wasn't there because he just kept thinking about his girlfriend who had cheated on him. After this, Adam went into the kitchen, and whilst he was in the kitchen, another man managed to escape, and he ran into the kitchen and attacked Adam. After this, he just turned around and started attacking Trevor, and that's when Trevor picked up the gun that he had and hit him in the head. And after this, he said that he's really confused, like he just remembers being choked, and next thing you knew, he heard a gun go off and the man fell straight onto the floor. Adam then took the gun from Trevor and went to the room where there was only one boy left and shot him in the back of the head. After this, Adam told Trevor that it was too late and that they had to shoot the rest of the men, and Trevor says he believes this because both of them worked at Sea Point and the men would be able to identify them because they did come in and they didn't have any masks or anything. The only thing they had were hand gloves, supposedly just to make sure that they didn't get their fingerprints on anything. So in the same manner that they did by slitting throats from one end to the other, they did the same thing as they were shooting the men in the back of their heads. So Adam started on one side and Trevor started on one side, and one by one they would shoot the men. And I can't imagine like the fear, just knowing that you're next, just one gunshot after the other, and just knowing that they're nearing you. It's such a scary thought.
I remember after we heard the first shot, we thought, okay, well, it's finished. And I remember me praying something like, now lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep.
Trevor says he shot 4 boys, and after he shot them, all 4 of them were still alive. After this, they put on balaclavas that they had and ran to a white BMW that they had parked. And after this, they just drove down the street, and as they were driving, they would just get rid of their evidence one by one. So we get rid of their masks and their gloves, and then eventually they ended up in Bellevue, and they stayed there until the sun rose. After the sun rose, Adam said that he would just catch a taxi and go back home. So whilst Trevor was driving on the N1, he realized that he still had both the murder weapons, and as he was driving, he dismantled both of them and would throw out the pieces just one by one as he was driving by. So Adam Woest and Trevor Theus were each sentenced to 9 life sentences, an additional 20 years for the attempted murder of Quentin Taylor, 15 years each for armed robbery, 3 years each for illegal possession of firearms, and another 2 years each for the possession of ammunition. Theus was also sentenced to an additional 3 years for stealing a firearm. Despite this case having happened over 17 years ago, people still debate why this happened and why these men were so brutally murdered. So with that, let's go straight into theories. First theory is armed robbery. The men were sentenced to 15 years each for armed robbery, and according to Trevor, they did steal 2,000 rands, but some people don't believe it because the crime was just so gruesome that it's unbelievable they would steal so little money and kill 9 men. The second theory is that this massacre was orchestrated by a competitor. According to Duval Uyes, the president of the Lesbian and Gay Alliances in Cape Town in 2003, 2 weeks prior to the massacre, he received a call from someone who was threatening to kill him if he didn't close down Sizzlers. And according to him, this man believed that he was the owner of Sizzlers. And he was really threatened by this call, and he took it seriously. 2 days before the massacre, Robert Visser, one of the victims, called Duval, and he said that he had to meet with him urgently, and he just really sounded scared, but didn't give any more details as to why he wanted to meet with him. Duval then said that they could meet on the 19th, which was the next day, but unfortunately he couldn't make it that day, so moved the date to the 20th, and they planned on meeting at 2 a.m. 2 hours before they were supposed to meet, Robert called him again, and he just said that he had to meet him right now. It couldn't wait, but unfortunately Duval said that he couldn't meet him at 12 a.m. and could only meet him at 2 a.m. unfortunately that meeting wouldn't happen, and the next day Duval found out about the massacre. The third theory is that this was gang related, and this is because if you remember in the beginning of the video, one of the suspects was said to have a tattoo on his wrist that said Fast Gun, which was a gang. And people just believe that this was the reason, and this was Sepoy during this time, and there were drugs involved and all of that. It was also said that there were two men that used to work at Sizzlers, and after this they decided to move to Joburg, and once they moved to Joburg they got involved with this gang, and after things went south they moved back to Cape Town and decided to work at Sizzlers again. So people believe that these men were looking for them because they had wronged them and walked into Sizzlers looking for them, and when they couldn't find these two men, decided to send a message. The fourth theory is that this was a hate crime. Sizzlers was known to be a gay massage parlor in the media, and queers did work there, so people often believe that there were people that really just didn't accept their lifestyle and didn't understand it, and therefore thought that they just didn't deserve to live, as well as the men that frequented Sizzlers. And that is it for today's case. If you guys have any theories about this case, please leave your comments down below. I'd love to read them and just know what you guys think. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.